Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the September 7th, 2017 regular meeting of the Milford Board of Aldermen. Please join me as we salute our flag. Madam Secretary, will you please take the roll?
Alderman Anderson.
Present.
Alderman Beatty.
Present.
Alderman Bevan.
Here.
Alderman Beer. Alderman Casey.
Madam Secretary, Alderman Casey is excused.
Thank you. Alderman Gurman.
Madam Secretary, Alderman Gurman would also like to be excused.
Thank you. Alderman Genatasio.
Madam Secretary, I am here.
Thank you. Alderman Golden.
Here.
Alderman Grant.
Here.
Alderman Hardiman. Here. Alderman Smith.
Here.
Alderman Beccarelli. Here. Alderman Vitro.
Here.
Alderman Vitale. Here. 12 present, Mr. Chairman.
We have 12 present, which we have a quorum. The next portion of our meeting is devoted to public comment. Statements are limited to the legislative function of the Board of Aldermen. The time limit granted to each speaker shall be 3 minutes. Residents, taxpayers, and electors may address the board at this time. The board encourages speakers not to express derogatory, insensitive, or offensive statements, or to engage in personal attacks against individuals. In order to allow everyone an opportunity to speak, I'd ask that everyone please limit their comments to 3 minutes. Anyone wishing to address the board can do so at this time.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Board of Aldermen, Mayor Blake. My name is Kim Rose. I live at 292 Naugatuck Avenue in Milford, and I'm also the state representative. I just wanted to say thank you, especially to Alderman Vitro, Alderman Veccarelli, and Alderman Hardiman, who attended a meeting the other day at Joey C's restaurant on behalf of our constituents in that district, and I really appreciate the fact that you took the time out of your personal day to come out and try to find some solutions for our constituents so that they can enjoy peace and harmony in their homes. I'm also asking tonight if I could possibly yield my time, respectfully asking if I could yield my time to State Representative Larry Butler, that he could have the balance of my 3 minutes. Larry.
Good evening, Chairman Vitro, honorable members of the Milford Board of Aldermen and women. My name is Larry Butler from 70 Blackman Road, Waterbury, Connecticut. I'm state representative from the 72nd District representing Waterbury. I also serve as the House Chairman of the Housing Committee. It's very nice to see you too, Mayor Blake. It's been a little while, but also it's nice to visit you in these beautiful chambers. First time I actually got to visit, but it's very nice. A couple of things I want to talk about really is a bill that we just passed, and it's related to affordable housing and how it the appeals process, the 8-30G. I'm sure everybody in Milford, when you utter that, know exactly what you're talking about. So, and we worked really hard to actually pass this bill. Matter of fact, I could tell you that prior to Representative Rose working with me on the Housing Committee and being my vice chair, I never thought that we needed to do anything to change that statute. She invited me here, and when I came here, I actually met with Mayor Blake and Aldermen, herself and some other state reps, and actually toured your beautiful town. And it seemed apparent to me that there was a lot of affordable housing, just didn't qualify because it wasn't deed restricted. And as it pertains to you and your legislative dealings, this bill has a provision that you can establish incentive housing zone. Sounds similar to something that you have, like a CDD1 designation that currently is here. But if you establish an incentive housing zone, any housing that's built in it, you can get extra points towards your affordable housing credits. So I'm urging you to take advantage of everything you can to establish that, because if you actually take advantage of it, not only will you meet your first moratorium, it'll be a lot easier to get your second moratorium. First moratorium is 4 years. A second moratorium is 5 years. And for this town to be free of developers who circumvent your local zoning for 9 years is worth you taking advantage of every part of this. So I'm here to encourage you to do that. And, and Alderman Anderson, I believe you were there when I came to visit, okay? But I just want to tell you that at that time, the mayor and everyone convinced me that Milford wasn't, that town is not my backyard when it comes to affordable housing, that you embrace affordable housing. So we went out there, Kim and myself and other legislators, and we actually created a bill. First year, didn't make it. Second year, we passed it in the House, okay, but it didn't pass in the Senate. Third year, Senator Schlossberg came on board. She's a House chair as well. We actually passed the bill. We passed it in the House and the Senate, and the governor vetoed it. And we worked hard enough to overcome a governor's veto to pass that legislation that favors towns like Milford that have that issue in the state of Connecticut. And I make that point to you because we worked very hard. I can't tell you, it's one of the most controversial issues in the state of Connecticut, and we found a way to do all that. We actually had to find a way to actually use political capital to actually override a governor's veto. I can't even start to tell you what's involved in doing that, but we did it, okay? So, and I say that because Milford, every conversation I had convincing people to vote for it, Milford was in the center of that conversation. And that's why, I'm also here. I could have wrote you a letter and put this all in it, but I wanted to come here in person and share this with you, to let you know how much it really means to me. And Milford wasn't the center of all this. And that's why I'm troubled by what currently happened at your planning and zoning board in that decision. It troubles me because I spent 3 years telling the rest of the state of Connecticut that Milford isn't one of those towns. And for that action to be taken less than a month after we overrode a governor's veto, I can't tell you what the rest of the state is saying to me now. I did it because I believed it was good policy. I believed in Milford, okay? And now I have the commissioner of housing. If you haven't read her comments yet, I'm sure, she's not pleased. The governor's not pleased. Legislators aren't pleased. They tell me, I told you so. And I say that, I bring it to you in this body because you can start taking advantage of the initiatives in the bill and prove that my believing in you was right. Please prove me right, because there's people now who are looking at me and saying, told you, they wouldn't do it. And I can't tell you how that makes me feel. We were yesterday talking about the budget in Hartford. Legislators were coming to me and saying that, how do you feel about what happened in Milford? They were only saying that to say that, Representative Butler, you were wrong about Milford in towns like that. Please don't let that be the way we continue going forward. You can prove them wrong by taking advantage of the initiatives in this bill. Please do. Okay, it's the right thing. It'll serve you well. I only have a few more points to make, but I just want to let you know that certain members of the zoning board seem to actually talk to exactly the right reason to have what they have in place. So I'm not going to talk about the board as a whole. I'm just saying that the decision didn't turn out right. And in closing, I come here because I hope after coming here and speaking to you tonight that this council and this mayor will actually reflect on that decision and let people know that that decision really wasn't helpful to Milford. And I'll tell you why. Because the rest of the state sees this and they're looking poorly on Milford as a result of it and all the hard work we did. I hope you help me prove the rest of the state wrong about really Milford not being one of those not in my backyard towns, okay? That you're more progressive about affordable housing, that you care about building it, you want to do it the right way. Please prove me right about Milford. Because if not, Milford will lose its credibility with the housing commissioner, Klein. It will lose credibility with the governor and with the General Assembly. And this one housing development isn't worth Milford's credibility. Remember as I leave you tonight that the rest of the state is watching what's going on here. Please, I implore you to actually speak on this issue and going forward, actually speak to what you'd like to take advantage of. The incentive housing zone has so many extra incentive housing points that really, if you take advantage of it, you can decide where the housing goes. You, the town, can decide. And you can get all these extra points. You will reach a moratorium, a second one. I'm telling you, 9 years of freedom from this statute is within your reach if you just do all the right things. So I came all this way to implore you to do that and let people know, and the residents of this city who called my office every day, and Representative Rose and Senator Schlossberg, who said to fight for a bill to give to you, we delivered. We delivered. We overrode a governor's veto to deliver it to you, Milford. Please take advantage of it. Thank you very much.
Anyone else like to address the board at this time?
Good evening. My name is Dominic Cotton from 60 Corona Drive in Milford, Connecticut. I'd like to thank the board for giving us an opportunity to be able to discuss issues of importance to our community. I'm currently running for Board of Aldermen, and I've had an opportunity to be able to go around and talk to constituents and specifically about the issue that Representative Butler has been discussing. And there's a level of importance to the voters that are out there.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, I just have a point of order. I don't know if this is the appropriate venue for his public comment. I appreciate the fact that he's a citizen and he's a taxpayer, but I just think we're getting off, you know, we're getting off to a bad start.
I'll give him his 3 minutes.
Thank you, much appreciated. So I know I've gone up to the legislature, and I've certainly spoken out for affordable housing in the state of Connecticut. I know this is a difficult subject to deal with. I know currently, as far as deed restricting goes, there's only 87 houses that are deed restricted currently. I know that as far as our community goes, people are concerned about this because every time they turn around, there's a builder who's going into residential areas and taking a 1 acre or less piece of property and sticking 12 to 15 units upon it. And I know it greatly distresses everybody. And the people that I've spoken to around Milford are concerned about this. And when it comes to our housing points that we accumulate for that, there's only another 2 or 3 units compared to the 461 that we need to do in order to reach a moratorium. I realize that we're close to that in some respects, but I think we need to be able to look towards the future of this and to be able to find a way to work together in order to be able to find the units available in order to create this. I know I spoke out against a development and the change of it because an extra 162 units of regular housing means that we have to create an extra 16 units of affordable housing. And at the rate of putting that in a residential community, that's 5 more developments that we have to deal with. So I'm looking for us to be proactive and not reactive in how we manage this, because we can find a way to be able to move forward within this and work within the state statutes in order to be able to get this. So at that, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak. Appreciate it.
Else wishing to address the board at this time? Seeing none, I'd like to thank Representative Rose and Representative Butler and Mr. Cotton for their comments this evening. We'll move on to our meeting. Agenda item number 3, Alderman Vecchiarelli, consideration of minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I move to accept the minutes of the regular meeting of the Board of Aldermen held on August 7th, 2017.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. We did not have a special organizational meeting to consider, so we'll move on to item number 5, Chairman's Report. I'd just like to remind all our board members and our audience, we have a 9/11 ceremony coming up Monday morning, September 11th, to be held at Plaque Tech High School, Monday morning at 9 a.m. Really nice ceremony that it's all put aside, and I think everyone would enjoy it, and it gives us a chance to remember that special date in our minds. Agenda item number 6, Mayor's Report. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I hope everybody had a fantastic Labor Day weekend. I know I did. I know our thoughts and our prayers are with the victims of Hurricane Harvey and those that are facing Hurricane Irma right now. In Milford, we know all too well the devastation and destruction of these storms of biblical proportion, and this just reminds everybody of how vigilant we need to continue to be. We are always monitoring, we are always preparing for the worst and hoping for the best in Milford. With that, I do request your consideration and action for those items on the agenda 8A through 8I. If you do have questions specifically about the microgrid items, we not only have myself and the city attorney and our finance director, but we have a team of experts in the audience who have a lot of information, a lot of background on those agenda items. Please don't hesitate to inquire.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item number 7, we have no unfinished business. We'll move on to agenda item number 8. New business, Alderman Vecchiarelli, agenda item number 8A.
Mr. Chairman, pursuant to Article 2, Section 6 of the Charter of the City of Milford, Board of Aldermen approval is requested for the appointment of Anthony Sutton of 8 Linmore Street to complete the unexpired term on the Board of Aldermen representing the 4th District.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. At this time, will Anthony Sutton please come to the front of the auditorium to get sworn in as our newest aldermanic member to our city clerk.
Can you raise your right hand, please? Do you solemnly swear or sincerely affirm that you will uphold your duties and responsibilities as a member of the Board of Aldermen for the City of Milford? So help you God, under the pain or penalty for perjury or false statement. I do. Welcome aboard.
Congratulations, Alderman Sutton. You can take your aldermanic seat and then continue on to the rest of our meeting. I also would like to take this time to thank Alderman Sutton for all of the years that he's putting into the Planning and Zoning Board. As Vice Chairman and Chairman of that board, I think he did a fantastic job. The city really owes him a great deal of confidence and well-being. So, Tony. Thank you for your service, Alderman Sutton. Alderman Vecchiarelli, agenda item number 8B.
Mr. Chairman, pursuant to Article 3, Section 16 of the Charter of the City of Milford, Board of Aldermen, approval is requested for the appointment of Brian Callaghan, 7 Mont Street, to complete the unexpired term on the Planning and Zoning Board representing the 4th District.
We have a motion and a second. And is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Alderman Vecchiarelli, agenda item 8D. C. Sorry.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the request for the appointment of Marika Mosley of 299 Ford Street as a member of the Milford Historic District, south of the Green, to fill the present vacancy, a 5-year term expiring 1/1/18.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Alderman Vecchiarelli, agenda item 8D.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the request for the appointment of Joseph Gilbert of 71 Harborview Ave as a member of the Milford Harbor Management Commission to fill the present vacancy, a 5-year term expiring 12/31/17.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, up. Alderman Giannattasio. Sorry, I didn't miss your hand.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On 8D, our person's resume states that the place of employment is Briar Patch Enterprises. I was just wondering, he's an owner, what that company actually does. Is that a fair question?
Mr. Chairman, through you to Alderman Giannattasio, Mr. Gilbert is in the audience today. He can speak for himself. But is a shell fishing, and I guess they harvest the fruits of the sea in general. He may have a better explanation as to the day-to-day stuff that they do, but Mr. Gilbert was a longtime member of the Milford Harbor Commission. He stepped down in the interim, and he's getting reappointed to the position that he held for an earlier term.
So he has some experience with the harbor and the contents of the harbor. So do you feel that he'll bring much needed leadership to that board, Mayor Blake?
I think that he has an expertise not only from being on the Harbor Commission, but being someone who has background in the harbor for a long time and being a Milford resident for life.
Would that experience include dredging?
He doesn't do any dredging that I know of, other than the dredging that's involved with the business of shellfishing.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any more discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
One abstention.
One abstention? Thank you. Alderman Vecchiarelli, agenda item 8E.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the request for the appointment of Carlo Picelli of 58 Carrington Ave as a member of the Milford Economic Development Commission to fill the present vacancy. Citizen, 4-year term expiring 12/31/17.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Alderman Vecchiarelli, agenda item 8F.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the request for the appointment of Eaton Hurst of 27 Woodhill Road as an alternate member of the Zoning Board of Appeals to fill the present vacancy, term 3-year term expiring 12/31/19.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Alderman Vecchiarelli, agenda item 8F. 8G. I'm sorry, that's the end of the appointments, I'm sorry. At this time, will all the newly confirmed commission members come to the front of the auditorium to get sworn in by our city clerk.
If you could all please raise your right hand for me. Do you solemnly swear or sincerely affirm that you will uphold your duties and responsibilities to the best of your ability on your prospective boards and commissions for the city of Milford, so help you God, or under the pain or penalty for perjury or false statement? I do. Okay.
Alderman Vecchiarelli, agenda item 8G.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the attached agreement between the City of Milford and Snyder Electric USA, Inc. for the design and construction of a microgrid with an associated controller and modifications, and to authorize the mayor, the city attorney, and public works director to take all steps necessary to effectuate said agreement.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Alderman Bevan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to the mayor. Coming up on item 8I, my question is, how much is this actually going to cost the city of Milford? There's two numbers that are on 8I. One is $10 million and the other one is $5 million. Could you maybe let us know a little more information about the cost of this project before we start voting on G before I?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to Alderman Bevan, I will give you a broad overview, and then I will defer to folks that are significantly more informed than I on this particular issue. As you recall, several years ago, the City of Milford, this board, accepted formally a microgrid grant that we received from the state of Connecticut DEP, approximately $3 million. That $3 million did not cover the entire scope of the project or the proposed project. It covered the connectivity. The actual power generation, generators and things of that nature were the City of Milford's, and that's what we explained to you approximately two and a half years ago when we were initially awarded this grant. We were planning to pay for the power generation, the generators, and in this case, a CHP, a continuous heat and power, and at one point this project even had a solar component. Pay for that through a power purchase so that the City of Milford would not be out any upfront costs. A power purchase, arguably the savings that we had through the energy savings would go towards paying that off. We have changed a little bit because the state has changed the rules of the game midway. And the reason why this grant has taken so long to come to fruition is there's a lot of different explanations. There's been a lot of changes in the state. We have waited those out. Thing number one, the state of Connecticut's DEP changed the rules of the grant. While it was initially, the $3 million was going to be an upfront pass-through that they were going to pay directly to the contractor. They changed the rules of the game at some point, and now it became a reimbursable grant. At that point, just because we made representations to this board that it would be a pass-through grant and not a reimbursable grant, we were ready to walk away. The state of Connecticut then came back and again allowed this to be a direct pay grant to the contractor. So we were back in the game. There's also some other legal mumbo jumbo that happened, some legislation that needed to occur, the virtual net metering legislation, the cap had to be expanded, and there's some other components that we had to make sure that two criteria happened. One, we were going to be saving money from this project, that our energy costs would go down such that it would fund this project and be a net positive for the City of Milford, and two, that this was going to add real resiliency. Really the primary function of this microgrid is the resiliency, the fact that when the power goes off, when the grid goes down, the lights in Milford stay on, or at least the lights that connect the 5 buildings, including City Hall that we're sitting in right now, the Parsons Government Center across the street, the Senior Center, Harborside Middle School, and the Tolson Building. Those 5 critical buildings will be powered up if there's a hurricane, God forbid, or some other type of disaster that brings the power grid down. And that's really the focus. There will be energy savings because of this project. This will have a net positive effect on our cash flow. But really what we're looking at here is to have these critical buildings, this critical infrastructure hardened, and so that we have this area of refuge if we need to have shelters, or if we need to have the City of Milford's government operation and critical management continue to go on in natural disasters. You know, just because we have just experienced Harvey in Texas and Irma in the Caribbean and now onto Florida, that certainly is a wake-up call once again that we have to remain vigilant. So I don't know if I answered all of your questions about the $5 million, $10 million, but we do have experts from both Schneider, our City Attorney's Office has really dug into this, as has our Public Works Office. So Mr. Saley, Mr. Burcham, and the representatives from Schneider, as well as Elliot Kamian, who's representing and counseling the city on this. He has a vast array of expertise, having done several of these microgrid projects in the past within the state of Connecticut.
Good evening, everyone. So if anyone has a question, if you don't mind, the mayor gave an overview, and as he explained, there was a lot of starts and stops in this project. Tom Ivers started the project a number of years ago. When he retired, the Public Works Department took over with the help of the City Attorney's Office and the Mayor's Office. It's a project that's had a lot of different changes. Schneider Electric has worked with the city, and the city has worked with them to make this project come together along with the state. It's a very nice project for the city. As the mayor is explaining, it gives us storm resiliency so that during a major event, when the power is out in this area, our system will be running and give power to the buildings. It will also save the city a substantial amount of money over a 20-year period. And to give you a quick overview, so a microgrid is more or less just a big generator that produces energy, but also produces heat for the building at Parsons. So there'll be two savings, both electric and gas. The other three buildings that are involved, or four buildings that are involved, are the Senior Center, the Trollson Building, City Hall, and Harborside. Presently, we pay approximately 16.25 cents as a blended rate for our energy, for our electric. This new process will reduce that substantially, between 20 and 25%, to about 12.5 cents a kilowatt. The lifespan of this microgrid, which is the actual generator, is approximately 20 years. Our term to pay it is 15. So we cash positive for the first 15 years, but the last 4 years are when it's really a big payout to the city. And we anticipate saving the city over $2 million over that time frame. The second part, which is, again, no outlay for the city, we're going to pay, it's a TELP, which is a lease purchase of the generation equipment. It's approximately $1.6 million for that equipment. That will be paid over, instead of paying the UI for the electric, we're going to pay this leasing company over the 15-year period. And we're very excited about it. It's a pretty big project. We're going to be running conduit from Parsons to the Senior Center, Parsons to Harborside, Parsons to the Trollson Building, and Parsons to City Hall. The one advantage is if power goes off in this area, the senior housing, which is right next door, and I believe it's 36 or 39 units, this unit will be able to power that building so people can shelter in place, which, as we see down in Florida and Houston, is a critical component. So seniors, who are our most fragile population, will have the opportunity to stay in place, which is a very important aspect of it. The storm resiliency is again part of it, but it is a huge savings to the city, and it really is a cutting edge technology. You know, I've learned a lot during this process working with the different companies, and I never understood this, but when energy is produced, this is a very green project, because when energy is produced, it actually reduces, or you lose 66% of your energy that you produce from the location by the time it gets to the end user. That's how much energy loss goes over the transmission lines. So this being so close, there's very little loss of energy. It's a very efficient unit. I think that's pretty much it for what we're trying to do. If anyone has questions about it, I'm more than happy to answer it.
Alderman Vitale.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to the director. Chris, so the grid is the generator, and the generator location is going to be where?
Yes, Alderman Vitale. So presently we have a 6,000-gallon oil tank that's right next to the Parsons building. That will be removed because we're no longer going to be using that, and we're going to put the generator at that location. So it's right between where the Board of Ed and the finance area works.
I know the area. Okay, after that, the construction of underground conduit to connectivity of all the buildings, who pays for that cost?
Okay, so the actual, well, it's two separate things. One is the generation part, which is the TELP. The generation part is the generators themselves. They're called CHPs, heat and continuous power, continuous heat and power. That's under the TELP, which is approximately 1.6 million. That's getting paid through our energy bill. Instead of paying the UI, we pay this leasing company. The 2.9, almost $3 million is the second component, which is tying in everything. Though instead of having power lines overhead, these power lines will be buried underground, and they will tie in all the buildings. The other positive is it will be behind 1 meter. Presently, there's 5 meters that we work off of, so there's more savings because it will be 1 meter at Parsons, and it will feed from that location to the other buildings.
You're saying that the 1.6 will be paid to at least a borrowing process rather than UI. Yes. And where's the 2.9 going to be? How's the 2.9 going to be paid?
That's a grant from the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection from the state of Connecticut.
In total?
That's totally reimbursed through the state, yes.
Thank you.
Alderman Grant.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Staley, could you speak about some of the costs of the upkeep or repairs that may happen over the next 20 years?
Sure. So part of the kilowatt cost that we have for the generation, there's an operation and maintenance cost associated with that. That's what puts the cost. So presently, we figure it's going to be between 11 and 13 cents a kilowatt. That's the average. We haven't gotten firm contracts yet. The purchase to gas will be between 5 and 6 cents. The general maintenance will be between 3 and 4 cents a kilowatt hour. And then the payments to the TELP will be about 3 cents a kilowatt. That's what we get to our average. So it'll be just like you have a service contract on different things, that's what we will have. And it'll extend out over the life of the contract with the unit.
All right, so it sounds like we're not going to get hit with a bill if something happens later on. Is that correct?
We are optimistic that will be the case, yes.
All right, thank you.
Alderman Vitale.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to follow up. So all the construction piece, the connectivity of all these buildings, how long a process will that take? What's your estimated time of completion?
I believe it's about 18 months. It really depends. We have to do some permitting with the UI. It's called an interconnect. And the basic rule is you got to go to the UI and say, we're going to be producing energy. Or the lines around this area going to be able to sustain that energy that we're producing? Because there's a component to this, which is virtual net metering, and I apologize for not bringing that up, which is a major component to it. It allows us to run this generator at a full capacity, and any energy we don't use, we pump back into the system, and we call it a host and a beneficial unit, so we can offset some of the costs of some of our other buildings.
Aside from the energy, aside from the generator, what is the disruption of traffic and pedestrian walkways and everything else in the construction and laying out of the conduit?
I think it will be minimal. I mean, there will be construction because we anticipate going through the Parsons parking lot to Harborside, and then from Harborside to the senior center. Obviously, we're going to try to schedule it when there's no school. That will be one of the components. City Hall will be coming down through Parsons, and God bless you. Parsons through, between Parsons and the yellow building, and then coming down and tie the yellow building in, and also here.
When you go from that generator to Harborside to Senior Center, you're disrupting roads and everything else, and you're saying the amount of time that takes up is minimal?
I think it will be a minimal disturbance, yes. I mean,
in your estimation, what's minimal?
Well, when you look at it, Alderman Vitale, we're going to be going over Constitution Boulevard, which is easily diverted. We divert it all the time. And we're going to be coming over West River Street right here, which again can be diverted fairly easily, and will tie into the main panel boxes of the buildings. The biggest part will be actually tying into the panel box, which will have no road issues at that point.
And your estimation of time again is what?
18 months.
But for that particular project, closing the roads and everything else, is it a day or 2 days?
Just say 3 days on each area.
Thank you.
Alderman Beccarelli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The generator, will it be gas and oil, or either or? What's going to run that?
So the present spec on it is a gas generator, a CHP. It's going to be an enclosure a noise attenuator so that it won't be noisy. It'll be very quiet from the outside.
Okay, we don't have an option, do we, for gas, to have oil also? You know, you just think if we lose the capability of the gas, you know, then we're out of luck. But is it an option we have?
To be honest with you, I would ask the experts.
Hi, good evening. Jake Friedman with Schneider Electric. So it is possible to get a generator that has dual fuel, but in this case it's not very economical. I think what we learned after Superstorm Sandy and the other events is that while the electrical system gets disrupted, the natural gas infrastructure is very robust, and we saw very limited to no disruption in the events that we had in Connecticut.
Yeah, I'm not looking for the economical advantages. That, you know, I'm looking at if we have a major event here where we then are in need of that generator to supply these 5 different buildings for the citizens. I mean, I can't think of offhand what might cause us not to have the gas, but certainly, you know, an earthquake might cause us to lose the gas capability. But to have, you know, a backup, you know, redundancy for the oil, I mean, I know that oil has a shelf life and it's, you know, there's a lot more complications, but we're looking at life-saving things here, and it just seems to me like if we do have that capability to have redundancy, I mean, like, well, I think a lot of the buildings in the city have the ability to switch from gas to oil depending on who's the cheapest. So, you know, anyway, it just seems like if we're going to do this, and I realize we're not looking to run this generator unless we need it. I don't know. I just hate to think that we might put all of our eggs in one basket. If we lose gas capability, it would seem reasonable to, you know, we can always get an oil truck to park next to it and just feed it if it can burn oil. But so I just want to maybe expand a little bit on that, and then the location of the generator is probably going to be in a spot where if it does make a lot of noise, there's really no people over there anyway, right? Over where you're planning on putting it. So that's not, the noise is not an issue with that, right?
No, and if possible, if the alderman would like to take a ride, we're more than happy to bring them to some similar sized generators that you can actually hear or not hear with the way they're in the box. If I can get back to the concern about having a dual source, Mayor Blake is actually, we're looking into that as a backup generator. There's actually, believe it or not, 1 or 2 down at Siemens Lane that we're looking at retrofit. That we would be using not only for that location, but for any location in need that would be both a gas and or diesel power generator as a backup, and it's something that we can work through this process. But the generator, as Jake Friedman was explaining, that we're getting, the efficiencies come by having it as a sole source, a sole energy source, because we did look at it, and it just, the economics didn't come back, but we did look at having a redundancy. In addition, the Board of Education has a backup generator also over there. And I do understand your concern if there was a major event and gas was disrupted, what are we doing? But Mayor Blake has been looking at that, using some of the generators that are presently not obsolete, but they have been replaced, and it's something that we're looking at, so.
Okay, well, I mean, you guys are in charge, and, you know, just, I would like to think that, you know, we have a plan B, so to speak, for this too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alderman Bevan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to City Attorney. Again, I'm looking at the lease agreement of $10 million and another line item for another $5 million. As Mr. Saley said, we would be saving $2 million. Could you explain maybe the lease agreement that represents the $10 million and the $5 million?
Mr. Chair, through you to Alderman Bevan, if you could point me to the page, That may be helpful, but let me just give you where I think you may be talking about. You may be talking about insurance requirements, but the TELP itself is the financing used to purchase the hardware, the fixtures, the generators. The TELP is $1.6 million. That's what we're estimating. We have to go out to bid to procure the generator, the CHP units. Schneider was very helpful in giving us an estimate of where they think they were going to come in, but because it's greater than $25,000, we have to go out to bid. But we've built in a little bit of a cushion on that, and right now the financing that we're seeking approval from this board through the TELP, the tax-exempt lease purchase, is $1.6 million.
If I can jump in, Attorney Burcham, I don't know what's in there because I'm looking at this and it's not here, but my only other question would be, it might be the payments that we're going to pay over the 15 years for the TELP, which is a lease payment, and I'm not sure if that's where the $10 million, but I can guarantee you that the two components that we're talking about right now are the 1.5, 1.6 for the TELP, and then the 2.9 for the infrastructure. Those are the two components. I don't have the information. I was looking here, it's not here, but we are going to be paying, I believe it's about $125,000 a year for the 15 years to the leasing agent as part of a utility payment, if it will be. Okay?
Alderman Bevan, on page 27, Exhibit J, on item 8H, if that's what you're referring to, that's talking about the minimum coverage of the design build insurance. It's the only documents that I see referencing 5 million, 10 million, if that's what you're referring to.
It would be on 8I, Exhibit B, item number 7A and 7B. And I don't have a page number. It's the, I want to say, third to the last page of our agenda. Again, look under 8I, Exhibit B. Item 7A and 7B.
Alderman Bevan, I'm going to have Elliot Kyman, who's been assisting me. Again, it's the insurance requirements, but I'll have Attorney Kyman maybe speak more eloquently than myself.
Thank you.
Good evening, Elliot Kyman, partner at Wigan and Dana, a law firm in New Haven. I believe the reference the Alderman has made is to provisions in a draft of the TELP agreement, which referred to the amount of qualified issuances of debt that the city might have on other projects. Those requirements won't be in the final version. To simplify the analysis, the form that the lessor provided initially was for a bank qualified issuance. This will be non-bank qualified, so the requirements in that exhibit to the TELP won't be present in the version the city signs. And in any event, neither of those referred to prices for this project. They were representations relative to the city's other issuance of qualified tax-exempt obligations.
Thank you for clearing that up. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Alderman Giannattasio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to Director Saley. I don't know if you ever answered the question, but how are we saving $2 million?
Over a 20-year period?
Okay, can you elaborate on that?
Sure. So very simply, right now we're paying about 16.25 cents per kilowatt for every kilowatt hour that we use at these buildings. The new rate will be anywhere between 11 and 13, but we're saying it's going to be 12. So that 25% savings is going to translate over that 20-year period of almost $2 million. The last 4 years, it's almost $1 million. That's when the TELP pays off for the equipment, and it's like paying off your mortgage. You no longer have a mortgage payment at that point. But for the first 15 years, we'll have a mortgage payment.
Okay, but you agree that the main purpose of this is resiliency. I mean, that's really the benefit of the whole program. I know the mayor mentioned that it was, you know, revenue positive, and I don't know if that's the case. I don't think I agree with that. But, you know, I just wanted to clarify the savings, you know, how you're projecting your savings. You know, I was in favor of this from the beginning. I know it's been delayed, not by our fault, but I would have to disagree with Mayor Blake. I would never walk away from a deal like this. I mean, I would just keep at it until I made a deal, and I'm glad that it, you know, that it's before us right now, you know, because we don't want to be caught, you know, in the middle of a storm and not have this in place. And we see everything that's happening around us. And, you know, Alderman Vecchiarelli mentioned oil. You know, I just wanted to mention, you know, we're looking at the news and everybody down south is starving for fuel. So I don't know if, you know, I agree with the oil part of it. I think, you know, there always will be the natural gas. That resource will be available, you know, because the first thing that happens when you have a storm like that is you lose your transportation, you can't transport fuel, you know, people are starving for oil. So that's just my thoughts. But I am in favor of this as presented, and I just wanted to ask you about that $2 million.
Sure.
Thank you.
If I can answer, I think it does both, and I think it does both very well. It gives us resiliency, but it also saves the city money from day one, and that's a home run, especially in today's economic times where we're always looking to, you know, pinch and save a few dollars. And I think it really puts the city at a cutting-edge position that the aldermen and the mayor have both been very supportive of. And there's other opportunities in the city to do other projects, and this is the first major project. And one of the delays is we had to bring in people like Elliot that had experience in this. It's not as simple as you originally think, but we feel like we're at the goal line now and we're ready to push it over.
Alderman Bevan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On this subject, it's a little off the subject, though. What about the police department and your own facilities? Do they have backup plans for a big storm like you're coming for this?
Yeah, so to answer that, all the critical infrastructure in regards to the police department, and believe it or not, Public Works has backup generators. So if we go off grid, we can run. The million-dollar question is like what you're seeing down in Houston and what's probably going to happen in Florida is when you have a major event, how long will those units run for? But we've run those on load. We test them monthly, I believe it is. So the critical infrastructure with the police and fire and Public Works all have backup generators presently. This is different. This is what they call a continuous heat and power. It's a continuous generating unit that's going to run, you know, 24/7, 365 almost, except for general maintenance.
Is this, what we're looking at tonight, is this something that we might want to use for the police department and Public Works down the road? Another set like this?
I think depending on where fuel cell technology and these CHPs go, that's something we can look at, but this is the first step in that process. These were the units that Tom Ivers, along with whatever group was doing it at the time, deemed that these were critical infrastructure buildings. I thought it was a good choice also.
Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any more discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Alderman Vecchiarelli, agenda item 8H.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the request for the attached agreement between the City of Milford and Schneider Electric USA, Inc. for the design and construction of a combined heat and power system and a battery energy storage system at Parsons Government Center, and to authorize the mayor, the city attorney, and the Public Works director to take all steps necessary to effectuate said agreement.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Alderman Vecchiarelli, agenda item 8I.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the attached lease with option to purchase agreement TELP between the City of Milford and All American Investment Group, LLC, for the combined heat and power system, battery energy storage system, and other related microgrid infrastructure, and to authorize the mayor, the city attorney, and public works director to take all steps necessary to effectuate said agreement.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Agenda item number 9, there is no new business. Agenda item number 10, there are no transfers, budget transfers. We'll move on to agenda item number 11, refunds. Alderman Vecchiarelli.
Mr. Chair, I need to recuse myself from this one.
I'm sorry?
I need to recuse myself from voting on this one.
Okay, thank you. Agenda item 11A.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the refunds in the amount of $202,067.85.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Alderman Giannattasio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to the Finance Director. Good evening, Peter. Can you just tell us exactly what this refund represents?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, Alderman Giannattasio, these are refunds that represent tax refunds that are owed to either the taxpayers or the banks that handle the escrows for tax payments due to a variety of reasons.
Okay, so I'm clear. So we're refunding the money to people that, in essence, overpaid, or their taxes were miscalculated?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, no, in general, these are for people who overpaid their taxes or where an adjustment was warranted. A lot of times it has to do with when there's a sale of property and there's still a mortgage on the property, and perhaps the taxes were overpaid by the bank, and so a refund is owed.
And this is an accumulation?
Correct. It's calculated by the tax office, and it is my understanding that these are done on a monthly basis.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification.
Mr. Chairman.
Alderman Anderson.
Through you, sir, question of Peter. So, Peter, I take it that along those same lines, I don't want to call the name of the business, but on page 2, there's a business that is receiving a refund of $170,000. That's the bulk of this list. And is that a business that where there was a mortgage on the property and a transfer, or is it something that is no longer in business? Do you know the specifics of that? It's number 11.
Sure. Through you, Mr. Chairman, I do not know the specifics, but I'm confident that the tax collector's office does.
Thanks. I'm going to follow up with the tax office.
Any more discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. With one abstain. Next on the agenda is item number 12, reports of standing committees. Are there any reports of standing committees? Seeing none, we'll move on to special committees. Is there any reports for any special committees? Oh, Alderman Hardeman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am part of the Permanent Schools Facilities Committee, and I'd like to let you know that the schools opened rather well this year, even with the 3-day delay of West Shore Middle School. West Shore opened very smoothly. It was a massive effort to get the school ready to receive students in a safe, clean environment. Paul Kavanaugh, Ken Hayes, and their enthusiastic staff, Pat Bradbury and his faithful soldiers, the city's fire, police, and building departments, the IT guys and girls, and the Permanent School Facilities Building Committee. Neil Martino from Durham, and the architects, contractors, and many, many more that got involved. A total team effort. And myself, and I know Ray would do this too, is thank you to everyone that made this happen.
Thank you, Alderman Hardeman. Alderman Giannattasio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to Alderman Hardeman or Alderman Vitale, I just wanted to know for the record, what was the cause of the delay originally with the school not being ready on time?
As they started to tear the school down, they found asbestos, and they had a delay in that. And there was just a lot of weird stuff in the walls, and it was crazy. But I was there every day, walking through it, watching them work. And the classrooms that are ready now for these kids are safe. There's no noise level. The contractors are working in a whole different area coming this way, so as not to disturb the education of the students. So, but a lot of that delay was asbestos and a few other items in the walls.
Thank you.
Is there any other reports of any special committees? Seeing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting adjourned. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.